While there are certainly deities devoted to festivities, the vast majority of festival clerics served other gods. Unlike other domains, festival is likely to be a temporary commitment. Before wholeheartedly devoting oneself to a deity, it was common for clerics of the Gilded Coast to take some time for revelry, self-discovery, and hedonism. They made a pilgrimage from the heavenly city of Calithopolis through the lawless Lakian wastes to the beacon of vices, Asek. Gods would rather not see the future members of their clergy killed before they could be of service, so they instilled their wandering clerics with divine magic to keep the party going. Healers are an important part of any adventuring party, but there's a certain stigma that can stop players from playing them. They're the mom friend, the babysitter, the HR rep.
Why are you the way that you are?
They lay the guilt on thicker than the sweaters they knit you for your birthday.
I made this one with my tears!
The Festival Domain Cleric is here to encourage those fantasy buzzkills to take a year off. Let their hair down, have a little fun, and still not worry about the party ending early.
My name is Rod, and I like to party.
My name is Dave, and I like to party.
No, Dave, I just said that I party, so maybe do something different for me.
I'm Rico, and I like to party.
Yeah, Rico, what did I just say to Dave?
I like to party. I'm Rod.
Hey everyone, this subclass and all of the other ones are available on my Patreon at the $5 tier. I know this kind of interrupts the video, but I still have people asking where they can find the text versions of these subclasses, and I put this in every video, so that's where it is. Now let's start the video. But before we get too deep into the subclass, first we have to talk about the class, Cleric. Saying that clerics are the healing class is incredibly reductive. Cleric is right up there with Bard for the most flexible class in the game. Their spell list does have a lot of healing options, to be sure, but it also has radiant damage out the wazoo, AoE spells, summoning spells, utility spells, resurrection spells, banishment spells. Anything you could need is probably on the cleric list somewhere. Unlike most other spellcasters, cleric is also able to change out their spells on a long rest as opposed to on a level up, which means that if you're playing a cleric, you should probably know the whole list. Also, depending on the cleric subclass, you get 2 more spells for free at every level up to 5th. Wizards of the Coast wanted people to play a healer so bad, they kinda broke the class. But it's okay if the spells are a little busted because the other abilities aren't very good. Oh wait, the other abilities are very good. You can channel divinity to ask your god for help in special flavor ways, depending on your subclass, and later even get an ability to ask a god directly for help in a specific way. It's pretty rare that it actually works until you hit level 20, and then it's just guaranteed to work once a week. Just ask a god for something, and it happens. Please play Cleric. The Festival Domain is a pretty fun way to play a cleric, and we'll talk about their spells first. Some of these overlap with the cleric list, but that was fine for Festival Domain clerics. It just meant they got to take other cleric spells. So for their first spells, Bless gave up to 3 creatures a d4 to add to their attack rolls and saving throws, helping making them more consistent and making sure that they didn't die. Unseen Servant created an invisible friend that would run errands for the Festival Domain cleric. It had a strength score of 2 and wasn't able to fight, but trust me, setting up a party all by yourself is exhausting. It helps to have an invisible friend. The spells Festival Domain clerics got at later levels would follow this theme, keeping people from dying or summoning someone to help you set up decorations. For second level spells, Calm Emotions forced a charisma saving throw on creatures in a 20-foot radius, making them non-hostile if they were hostile. It only worked on humanoid type enemies, and it would end early if the cleric dropped concentration. It would also end early if one of the party members attacked the person, but Festival Domain clerics were pretty good at keeping their party chill.
I'm perfectly calm, dude.
Pyrotechnics turns a little bit of a flame into a firework or into a smoke bomb, depending on what you need. It did have its combat uses, blinding foes or heavily obscuring the area, but more often than not it was used for fireworks or a fog machine. For third level spells, Catnap put 3 willing creatures to sleep for 10 minutes. At the end of that 10 minutes, they would get the benefits of a short rest. That just meant they were able to come back to the party and party harder, especially if they were a warlock or a fighter.
Great nap. It really was.
Tiny Servant turns a tiny object into a little servant. The stats are in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. He wrote the book on that. I didn't, but I'm not rewriting the stats for you. That's his job. Some spells help you make friends. This one literally makes you a friend. Festival Clerics could make a much bigger friend at the 4th level with Summon Construct. That summoned a magical construct. The stats for that are in Tasha's book. She wrote that one. She thinks she's so great and didn't have to go to Moriae to research her book. It's so hot in Moriae. I hate it. Anyway, the spell Confusion bamboozles people in a 10-foot radius, making them roll a d10 to figure out what they're going to do on follow-up turns. They can either stand still, run away, or attack a random creature within their range, or occasionally even act normally. Basically, Festival Domain clerics were pretty great at getting everyone lost in the sauce. For 5th level spells, Animate Objects made a bunch of tiny objects come to life. Candelabras, tea kettles, clocks, anything. Occasionally it was used for violence, but it was a lot more fun to use it for parties. Greater Restoration removes a bunch of nasty effects, but Exhaustion was the most common. If the party never stops, the most fearsome foe a Festival Domain cleric would fight is Exhaustion. Now that we've covered the extra spells, let's focus on the abilities that a Festival Domain cleric got. One of the first things that every Festival Domain cleric did on their sabbatical was learn how to play a musical instrument. They gained proficiency with a musical instrument of their choice and the performance skill, though they were able to use their wisdom modifier for performance checks rather than charisma.
I'll take you down to the streets.
You know that really quiet friend you have that took a while to open up, but then you found out they were the funniest person you ever met? That's a Festival Domain cleric. All of this relaxing was infectious and would make for a very well-rested party. At the end of a long rest, a cleric could choose a number of creatures equal to their proficiency bonus to receive a number of d6s equal to their proficiency bonus in extra HP for the rest of the day.
Shut your mouth, lay down, and don't move for about 8 hours.
This wasn't temporary HP, this was real, honest-to-goodness stuff. Since it only worked on a number of creatures equal to the cleric's proficiency bonus, they started off making 1 or 2 friends, and then expanded to a tight-knit group of 6 by the time things were done. Since this wasn't temporary HP, that meant that you could still get temporary HP bonuses on top of this extra health, from things like Heroism, Inspiring Leader, or Enhance Ability. At level 2, Festival Domain clerics were able to channel Divinity to go for another round. When a creature within 30 feet of the cleric hit 0 HP, the cleric was able to use their reaction to heal that creature an amount equal to twice their cleric level plus their wisdom modifier. After they received this healing, they gained an extra 10 feet of movement speed and 1 additional action the next time they took a turn.
Ferris Bueller, you're my hero.
This was a special reaction that the cleric could even use if they fell unconscious, so they could use it on themselves. Even the most sinister of gods didn't want one of their servants dying early. This would either ensure their investment was safe, or let their investment resurrect a more martial ally who would keep their investment safe. If someone was really killing the vibes, a 6th level Festival Domain cleric would call for an early ejection. This is another type of channel divinity they had access to. When a creature attacked an ally within 60 feet of them, they were able to cast the banishment spell on that creature. That forced a charisma saving throw on the creature, sending them back to their plane of origin or to a harmless demi-plane for up to a minute depending on the cleric's concentration. If the cleric was able to hold concentration for the full 10 minutes, the creature would end up staying at their home plane if they weren't from around here. It's much harder for a demon to kill God's favorite cleric when they're stuck in hell. Things always became dubious studying clerics of the 8th level. Most records I saw suggested that Festival Domain clerics gained access to potent cantrip, letting them add their wisdom modifier to the damage of their cleric cantrips. But everyone's favorite researcher, Tasha, decided that divine strikes were possible for any cleric. I'm not mad at Tasha. If a cleric ever stayed in the Festival Domain until they hit the 17th level, they were truly a delight to be around. As the life of the party, when allies within 30 feet of them were below half their hit point total, they recovered amount of HP equal to 5 plus the cleric's wisdom modifier at the end of the cleric's turn. Not only did this provide a steady stream of regeneration, it also incentivized the cleric's allies to form a phalanx around him and protect the god's precious investment. Out of combat, it basically let the party heal back up to half between encounters, without even taking a short rest. Since Cleric is such a flexible class, it's a little hard to explain how Festival Domain pairs with the class. To say that this subclass doesn't do a lot of damage is kind of disingenuous. A Festival Domain Cleric can still summon a spiritual weapon and fire off sacred flames like the best of them. See, Cleric doesn't really have subclasses. Cleric has another class. The Festival Domain Extra class gives a little bit of extra healing, stops your friends from dying, and banishes bad guys who are giving you trouble. They also got a few more conjuration options and some non-violent ways to bamboozle their foes instead of blasting them. I will say though, a great spell to mix in with the well-rested ability is Aid, since that also adds real honest-to-goodness HP to a creature's HP total. Cast it at the highest level, and you could give 3 creatures 40 extra HP, 6d6 extra HP from well rested, and that 6d6 to 3 more creatures as well, giving the party a total of 120 plus 36d6 more HP for your enemies to carve through, or around 228 with median rolls.
Why won't you die?
Increasing the HP totals also activates life of the party earlier, so that regeneration pops faster and you get more healing out of it. Maybe one of the best parts of this is the catnap spell. Since your channels of divinity recharge on short rests, you could basically pop a short rest every encounter and have every channel divinity available to you when you start another encounter. Not to mention the life of the party ability brings everybody back up to half HP, which means they have to use fewer hit die and you have to heal less. But what if we wanted to cheese with some multi-classing? Again, if we're talking about catnap letting you get short rests off faster, you could mix it with warlock to get warlock spell slots back faster, and you could mix it with sorcerer and the flexible casting ability to get a ludicrous amount of small level spell slots. Forget the coffee lock, this is a Jagerbomb Cleric. Fighter would also be fantastic since Action Surge recharges on a short rest, so you could recharge Action Surge and another round to make 3 actions in one turn, if you died. Since you get catnap at 5th level, you could still get 3 attacks per round as a fighter by going 11 levels deep, and make 9 attacks in a single round. That's at total level 16, and you'd have to die to do it, but it's still pretty rad. Monks recover their key points on short rests, so you could use catnap to make sure that you're basically entering every encounter with full key points, fixing up one of the biggest weaknesses of monk, which is limited key points. It would almost make 4 elements monk good. This is basically just a list of classes that would work well with catnap, but honestly, Festival Domain Cleric is really flexible. Pretty much any build could benefit from a little bit of healing abilities, and everybody could use a break. If you could use a break, why don't you pop on over to my Patreon? At the $5 tier, you'll get access to the text version of this subclass, as well as all of the other ones I've worked on so far. Even if you can't support the Patreon, that's okay, I understand. Just like the video, subscribe for more, and leave me a nice comment. Nice comments feed the algorithm even more. Then come back next week for more from the Gilded Coast of Moriae!